All right, diving in, you guys sent in the Voyager episode Resistance. And, well, let's just say I'm ready for some space drama, some tough choices, maybe even a good cry. Who knows?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with those tough choices. What always grabs me about Resistance is how it tackles this idea of fighting back. Not just, against some big baddie, but like those internal struggles too, the stuff we wrestle with inside.
Right. And right off the bat, Voyager's in a bind. We're talking desperate for Tellerium. Without it, warp drives kaput.
And that desperation, it pushes them to the edge. Like sending an away team to a planet run by the Mokra Order, that's not exactly a walk in the park. We're talking paranoid, ruthless, the whole 9 yards.
Talk about tension from the get-go. The team's captured, communication's dead, and back on Voyager, it's a ticking clock. It makes you think, how far is too far when you're just trying to stay alive?
Yeah, and the episode nails that pressure. We see Kim in engineering, right? He's practically juggling chainsaws to keep Voyager running, having to drop the shields, which is a huge risk, just to keep the lights on, and that's just the start.
Right, and then we have Neelix. And anyone who's watched Voyager knows he's more than just the ship's chef. Dude's got history. Ties to the Alsorian resistance, this group that's been fighting the Mokra for ages.
It adds this whole other dimension to things, because Neelix isn't some hardened soldier. He's a survivor, and his connection to the resistance, that's personal, it's deep. He gets the Tellerium, puts himself on the line, but then sees his friends captured. That moment with Chakotay back on Voyager, raw emotion, guilt, frustration, the works.
He tries to help, nearly blows up in his face. Like no easy answers in this scenario, that's for sure.
Exactly, and this is where that resistance theme really kicks in. You've got the organized resistance, fighting the Mokra head-on, then the away team facing down their captors, and Voyager itself just trying to exist in this crazy part of space.
It's like resistance on every level, and then bam, enter Ogris, Mokra Magistrate. But he's almost polite. Definitely not what I expected.
Ogris is a wild card. Everything we know about the Mokra screams, "Danger, Will Robinson." But here he is, promising to help find the missing away team. Is it genuine? Is there an angle? It keeps you guessing.
Definitely unsettling, like the calm before a storm. And speaking of, cut to Janeway. She wakes up and things get, well, strange. She's being cared for by this guy, Caylem, who is convinced she's his daughter.
And here's where the episode takes a turn. It's not just about blasting phasers anymore. Now we've got these parallel stories. Janeway trying to play along with Caylem while figuring out how to reach Voyager, and then Tuvok and Torres stuck in a Mokra prison planning their escape.
Two sides of the same coin. Janeway, the diplomat, forced to work within this delusion, and Tuvok, Mr. Logic himself, using his Vulcan training to break out. What struck you about those first encounters?
For me, Caylem just tugs at the heartstrings. This guy's clearly dealing with some heavy stuff, but he's so gentle with Janeway, making her soup, singing to her. He's holding on to this belief that she's his daughter. It's just, it gets to you.
It really does.
And it speaks to something deeper, right? Caylem's delusion. It's a way to deal with a loss we don't even know about yet. A way of resisting that pain by creating this world where his daughter's still alive.
So it's not just about physical resistance, but protecting yourself emotionally. And that belief, it becomes the driving force.
Yeah.
Janeway has to use Caylem's delusion, this need to rescue his wife, to get closer to where her crew's being held.
Exactly. She's walking a tightrope, using his vulnerability even if it's for the right reasons. And it's through Caylem that she meets Darod from the Resistance. He gives her weapons, intel on the prison.
But that truth about Caylem, it's hanging over everything. The closer they get, the more you just feel this dread knowing it's going to come crashing down.
Like a ticking time bomb. We're just waiting for that moment when Janeway has to break the news. And it makes their bond, even more heartbreaking. It really makes you ask, how far would you go to protect someone, even if it meant keeping up a lie?
It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck, We know the truth, but Janeway's still clueless. Just so much tension.
The writers really nailed that whole dramatic irony thing, and they don't let Janeway off easy either. She's not thrilled about deceiving Caylem, but her crew's in trouble, so what's she gonna do? Moral dilemmas all over the place, and it's even tougher because Caylem's such a sympathetic character, you know what I mean?
Totally. You see her battling with her conscience the whole time. She's using him, yeah, but she cares about him too. But it's messy. No simple answers.
And then, boom, the truth bomb drops. Caylem spills his guts, tells Janeway about his wife, how she was in the Resistance, arrested by the Mokra. He was supposed to meet her for a raid, chickened out, never showed.
Talk about a backstory that punches you right in the gut. Suddenly, everything about Caylem makes sense. The grief, the guilt clinging to this whole my daughter's alive thing, It's all about coping with this loss he just can't face.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. Really gets into Prama, how our minds try to shield us from pain that's just too much to handle. Kaylem's delusion, it's not just a plot device, it's that human need to hope, even when it seems impossible.
And that hope, it leads him to sacrifice himself. He knows Janeway needs to get to the prison, and in his mind, this is his chance to make things right, to rescue his wife.
It's heroic and heartbreaking all at once. He attacks Ogris, the Mokra magistrate, not because he's some trained fighter, but because he's driven by love. Even if it's based on this delusion, it's a distraction, gives Janeway and the others time to get out.
Ugh, that moment when he calls her Ralkana as he's dying gets me every time. The acting, the writing, packing so much emotion into such a short scene.
And it makes you think about what it means to be a hero, right? Is Caylem a hero? He's operating on a false reality, but his actions have real consequences. It's that nuanced look at courage and sacrifice that stays with you.
For sure. So, while all this is going down, Voyager's got its own crisis brewing. Mokra are attacking, and things are looking pretty dire.
But never underestimate Ensign Kim. He figures out a way to use a magnetic storm to hide the ship from Mokra sensors, buys them some time to put together a rescue.
That's Voyager in a nutshell. Resilient. They've been through the ringer, lost so much, but they never give up. It's not just about fighting back. It's about holding on, finding a way to survive, even when the odds are stacked against you.
And the way that they cut back and forth between Voyager and the prison break, brilliant. That sense of urgency, the race against time, it keeps you glued to the screen.
Absolutely. Then, bam, final showdown in the prison complex. The away team's back together, but still surrounded by Mokra guards. And Ogris, well, he lays down the truth about Kaylem's wife.
Another layer of tragedy, right. He's taunting Caylem, telling him his wife's been dead for 12 years, that the rescue's pointless. But in that moment, Caylem has this flash of clarity. He attacks Ogris, not out of delusion, but defiance.
He's not fighting to save his wife anymore. He's fighting for himself, for the life he lost, for the love that was taken from him.
And it's that act of resistance, small as it is, that lets the away team break free. Caylem dies in Janeway's arms, but he dies a free man, believing he's finally back with his daughter.
Ugh. Janeway telling him his wife forgives him. So beautiful, so bittersweet. Caylem finds peace, and Janeway gives him the closure he needed. Sometimes compassion is its own form of resistance.
It really is. And just when it seems like all is lost, the Voyager rescue team shows up. Classic Star Trek escape. But it's more than that. They're not just getting away from the Mokra. They're escaping the weight of all that they've been carrying, the grief, the guilt, the fear.
You nailed it. And that last shot, Janeway with Kaylem's necklace, it says it all, Love, loss, sacrifice, that quiet strength to keep fighting even when it feels hopeless.
A reminder that resistance can look like a lot of things. Sometimes it's a huge uprising, sometimes it's that internal struggle, sometimes it's just about holding on, finding a way to keep going when everything's falling apart.
Makes you think about what freedom really means, right? The Mokra, they've got this iron grip on their world, controlling everything, communication, basic freedoms, the works. They see any kind of pushback as a threat. Makes you realize how fragile freedom can be.
Absolutely. It's like a mirror to those authoritarian regimes throughout history, the paranoia that need to control every little thing their people do. A cautionary tale about what happens when power goes unchecked, for sure.
Yeah, really gives you chills. And for Voyager, it makes things even trickier. They need Tellerium. It's a matter of survival. But Starfleet's all about non-interference. How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, you're walking a tightrope, no doubt about it. Voyager's always having to make these tough calls, knowing that their actions could backfire. It reminds us that even with the best intentions, messing around in another culture can get messy real fast.
And the Alsaurian resistance, they're fighting for what's right, but they've lost so much. It's like, what's the price of freedom? What are people willing to give up to break free?
It shows how complicated resistance movements really are. There's courage, but also loss, compromise, knowing you could be putting others in danger. It's a far cry from those romanticized rebellions we see sometimes, right?
Yeah, resistance feels real, grounded. They could have just focused on the action, the escape, but instead they spend time showing the emotional cost of it all, for the individuals, for Voyager as a whole.
And that's what makes it more than just another space battle. It's about what conflict does to us, the strength of the human spirit, those different ways we resist, both inside and out.
When we started this deep dive, I thought we were just going to chat about a Star Trek episode. But it's turned into something bigger, hasn't it?
It really has.
It's about those things that tie us all together. The need for hope, The guts to stand up for what you believe in, fighting for something better, no matter how hard it seems.
Yeah, a reminder that even in the dark times, there's always a spark, Something that can kickstart change. And that spark, it can come from anywhere. A grieving father, a clever engineer, a captain who just won't quit on her crew, even when all hope seems lost.
So as we wrap this up, I'm left thinking, what does resistance mean to you? What hits home? Caylem's love for his family, Janeway's quick thinking, those tough choices Voyager and the Resistance had to make. Whatever it is, I hope this conversation's given you something to think about, something to take with you as you deal with your own world, your own struggles, your own moments of resistance. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.